Hello everyone and welcome to round 11 of the FTX Crypto Cup. The preliminaries, it's a very nice matchup. Magnus Carlsen versus Hikaru Nakamura, always an exciting one, and this game is no different. It's much more exciting than a few of the previous games that the two of them have played, but you will be the judge of that as usual. So without further ado, let's check it out. Magnus has the white pieces and he opens with e4. If you don't remember the standings, these are the standings after the 10 rounds have been played. So Hikaru doing extremely well. He's the current leader, joined with 6.5 points, and Magnus with 5.5 points. He's currently safe. He's not really in any danger of not qualifying for the main event, but you always could do better, you know. So e4 by Magnus, we have e5 by Hikaru, knight to f3, knight to c6, and now bishop to c4. Hikaru goes bishop to c5, and no, it was not played in this game. Here Magnus goes for c3, the main line of the Giuoco Piano. We have knight to f6, d3, and now castles. We have knight b to d2. So just normal developing moves. We have d5, attacking the bishop here, e captures, knight captures, and now knight to e4, attacking the dark square bishop here. We have bishop back to e7, and here Magnus castles. We have knight to b6, attacking the bishop here, bishop to b3, and now bishop to f5. We have a4, now going for a5, so Hikaru pushes a5 himself, and interestingly, Hikaru already had this position against Topalov in the FIDE Grand Prix in Riga, and that game ended in a draw. Topalov went rook to e1 here, but Magnus goes bishop to e3, and it's not a known move. It has been played before, but there is only one game, or maybe two games. There is one, Adiban versus Antoneta Stefanova, where knight to d5 was played, going after this bishop, and Adiban was able to win that game. It was in Gibraltar Masters of 2014. But here we have king to h8 by Hikaru, and it is now already, as of move 12, that we have a completely new game. He's getting out of this long diagonal, so the bishop will not be able to pose any problems. Later on, he wants to move the bishop and play f5 and start an attack against Carlsen's king. So let's see how he deals with this, as this is a completely new move. So here we have rook to e1 by Magnus and the bishop to g6, just continuing with his plan. We have knight to g3, and now here Magnus is kind of offering this d3 pawn, but not really. If you capture it, for example, queen captures, we can just capture back and then play bishop captures on b6, c captures, and now the e5 pawn also falls. So captures, captures, and captures, and we get this position where material is equal. Hikaru has the bishop pair, but his pawn structure is a little bit messed up, and white should be a little bit better here. So instead, after this pawn offering, Hikaru ignores it. He plays knight to d7, and now Magnus not really in a good position here. f5 is coming, and there is not much you can do about it. Magnus tries by striking in the center with the d4, and he spent quite a lot of time deciding on this, as he's already down to 6 minutes, some 6 minutes and 30 seconds, whereas Hikaru has a full 12 minutes on the clock. And he just continues with his plan of f5. Now saying that, okay, if you capture here, I'm just gonna play f4 and I win. You will have to give up a piece here. So instead, after f5, we have d5 by Magnus, attacking before Hikaru gets the chance to push f4, and now knight to b8. Hikaru says it's not a problem. This knight will rejoin the game afterwards. This knight can come to f6, then this knight to d7, but you still have to worry about f4. So Magnus goes back with bishop to c1, and now is the moment where good things might happen. So here, the move Hikaru should play is not push a pawn, as his pawns are amazing here, just controlling all of these squares. Magnus not really having any active moves. Okay, the e5 pawn is hanging, so we might just defend it, and then you continue building your game. However, Hikaru played f4 here a bit prematurely maybe, and he just allowed Magnus some very natural developing moves. So now he gets his knight to e4, and this is now an excellently placed knight. We have knight to a6 by Hikaru, preparing to bring this knight back into the game, and now bishop to c2. We have rook to e8, and now b3 by Magnus, and now bishop to f6. But now already If you compare this position to the position where the pawns were still on e5 and f5, and all of these squares were controlled, the knight still not doing all that great on g3, this position is much, much better for Magnus, and he plays bishop to a3 to prove it. Now controlling this beautiful diagonal here, gaining more control of the d6 square, and now it's not really easy to counter this. If you just go back bishop to e7, then we can just play d6, and this is now better for white. For example, if we capture on d6, captures with the knight, attacks the rook here, so bishop captures. We're first going to capture the bishop on g6, and now, for example, captures, queen captures, and this is just a beautiful position for white. This rook is coming to d1, the g6 pawn is hanging, the e5 pawn is hanging, everything is attacking it, so it's just a much, much better position for white. So instead, Hikaru goes knight to b6, but Magnus continues pushing all the same. He just plays d6 here. So what do you play here? Well, what you want to do is basically just eliminate this pass pawn. It's not a pass pawn yet. It first has to deal with this tension. But if you eliminate it, then we play knight captures, attack the rook, and after the rook moves, now we play bishop captures on g6, h captures, and knight to f7 check, and we win the black queen. There are some other lines, of course, black can choose, but all of them are pretty bad. So instead, after d6, he can't really allow such things. Hikaru plays c6, but this now also means that Magnus has now a beautiful defended pass pawn on d6. So here we have queen to e2. The pawn is sufficiently defended, so you can now develop the queen. You want to bring the other rook into the game as well. Knight to d7 by Hikaru, and now rook a to d1. So this is very, very, very difficult to play for black. We have bishop to h5, now pinning the knight. If the queen moves, maybe you can open up the white king's position a little bit. And here Magnus just plays b4. And now the situation on the clock, if you remember, Magnus was very much down on the clock. Now the situation on the clock is both players have some 2 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock. So here Hikaru grabs on b4 once, we have captures on b4, and now queen to b6, developing the queen. Now also he might be able to activate those rooks, but now Magnus just pushes b5. And here, maybe you don't want to capture on b5, maybe you want to play something like knight 8 to c5 and then do some trades on c5, and if white wants, white can capture here. But Hikaru says that no, I'm going to capture on b5 by just capturing first. We have 8 captures, and now knight 8 to b8. And now those knights are not, don't really have anything to do here. It's just a really, really tough position. The bishop here is under attack, so here we're just going to play bishop to b4. This is what Magnus played, and now all of these squares are nicely covered, so the knight really cannot go anywhere. At some point, you're going to have to move this knight to bring this knight here, and then, well, all in all, it's going to be very, very difficult to develop these knights. So here we have knight to f8 by Hikaru. He has to try it somehow. Now comes knight to c3, going after this d5 square to attack the queen and the bishop. And just the knight on d5 is going to be an extremely strong piece. So queen back to d8, and now knight to d5. We have rook to a2. Hikaru spots this very active move now, but it's maybe not active enough, because Magnus just plays queen to c4 and says, what is this rook even doing here? I will show it. There is one move here that is really, really strong, so if you guys want, maybe you can even maybe even pause the video and try and find it, because it's a really nice position, so it'd be a shame not to explore it. So play a move with white while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding the strongest attacking move, as you always do. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's knight to e7. It's just a beautiful bone in black's throat, and there's nothing black can do about this. You cannot capture this knight. It really would serve no purpose, because the bishop is also helping out with the defense. Also, you don't want to open up the rook here. And another thing it does, it keeps an eye on the g6 square. So this queen, for example, can come to d3, and then you're going to have this queen going for this h7 square, and there's really not all that much you can do here. It's just a beautiful position, and black is basically without a move here. So knight to e7 would have been very impressive, but they are both very low on the clock. So Magnus goes queen to c4, It's also a very nice move. And now Hikaru doesn't want to go back and give Magnus more free tempo. He just eliminates it to get rid of this knight and open up the white king. So here queen captures, bishop captures on f3, g captures, and now queen to d7. Trying to maybe get this queen into the game. Maybe you can get queen h3, and then maybe knight can come to g6 to h4. Maybe you can deliver checkmate with queen to g2. Who knows what might happen. Magnus goes knight to c7, now attacks the rook here, and rook to d8. We have queen to c4, Magnus improving the position of his queen, and now queen to h3. The move doesn't really do anything, but still, with under a minute on the clock, it's maybe not the most pleasant move to face. So here, rook to d3, now defending the f3 pawn, and now knight b to d7. The problem is you want to start by going something like this and then deliver checkmate here. The problem is if you leave control of the e6 square, Magnus can just play queen to e6 and now offer a queen trade, and that's it. Now you really don't have any good moves. You are down the exchange, and that's not the way to go. So here, knight b to d7 by Hikaru, and now queen to f7. Like Hikaru, Magnus now plays a scary move with his queen, and now Hikaru has to watch out for a lot of things. So here we have bishop to h4. Now, even with some ideas of maybe sacrificing the bishop here, king captures, queen captures on h2, maybe good things can happen here. So Magnus just defends against this. He plays rook to e2, and now knight to f6. And here there's a really scary move here, and I know you guys know which move it is without even pausing the video. So I'm just gonna show it to you. Magnus did not play it. Magnus played something else, but we're gonna show it. It's d7. d7 is a very nice move here because it just attacks the knight twice. I mean, and there's not much you can do here. Now you can start by capturing on d7, and even though yes you lose a pawn, it doesn't matter. Knight to e6 attacks the rook and also threatens checkmate. So you'd have to defend rook to g8 and now rook to c3. But this is of course impossible to find with such little time on the clock. And now there's simply no defense. Black's only defense is to play queen f5 to go for this queen g6 check to try and trade queens. White will play rook to c8. Now, of course, if you capture on c8, then just queen captures on g7 checkmate. So you have to go for this queen trade. And now we're going to play captures, captures, rook captures, king captures, and now it doesn't really matter, bishop to d6 or anything, and white is just winning here because, well, you are up material. So this is one way to do it. Magnus played bishop to c3, but bishop to c3 offers Hikaru a lot more squares, because now he gets his queen into the game with tempo. Now the rook on d3 is under attack. Magnus brings it back to d1, and now queen to h3. Again, Hikaru just asks, what are you playing here? I'm planning to capture here on f3. Magnus repeats, and Hikaru repeats again. And he says, I'm very happy with a draw. I'm very lucky to have survived this long. What do you want to do? And here Magnus not interested in a draw. He plays rook e to d2. Now giving Hikaru even more chances. And now Hikaru plays e4. And e4 is not the move you want to play. E4 is, well, something that loses the game for Hikaru. But again, with so little time on the clock, it's very easy to miss. Rook to d5. Just attack the queen. The knight, of course, cannot capture because queen captures queen. And after the queen moves, we happily trade, for example, captures, and now knight can capture on d7. We're going to capture on f6. Knight captures, now play knight to e6. Attack the rook. If the rook moves, we don't really care. So probably black will just capture here. We're going to capture black's rook, and now again we're going to enjoy this position. We are up material. This knight is the knight is under attack. Once the knight moves, we can start pushing our passed pawn. It is a completely winning position. However, little time on the clock, let's not forget that. Bishop captures on f6 is what was played by Magnus. Here Hikaru grabbed back, bishop captures, and now rook to d5, attacking the black queen, but now queen to c8. So it is a little bit different. We have b6, now cementing that knight on c7, and now comes e3 by Hikaru. Again, finding the only moves, the position is most of the times lost for Hikaru here, but he finds the only moves that pose problems for Magnus. So here, Magnus goes d7, saying that, okay, you capture my rook, I'm going to capture your queen here. So here we have knight captures on d7, and now comes rook to d1. And this rook to d1 is another mistake by Magnus. You have to capture first and then play anything like rook to d3, and then if the pawn moves, you can play king to f2. And then you don't really care about black's passed pawn anymore. However, after knight captures on d7, Magnus played rook to d1, and now e2 is a bit of a problem because you can't go up. E1 will just be queen. So here, rook to e1 was played, but now Magnus no longer has doubled rooks on the d file. We have knight to e5. Now Hikaru with the threat of just knight captures on f3. So Magnus gives back the exchange. We have rook captures, bishop captures, and now king to g2. And here Hikaru played rook to f8, and believe it or not, it was in this position on move 51 that the players agreed to a draw. Really insane stuff. Magnus had so many possibilities, but Hikaru in these insane positions, Hikaru is just like we already mentioned. There's that one video that I made. Hikaru truly seems to be immortal. So really, really outstanding. And here you draw because once the queen moves, there's really not all that much you can do. Black can just capture here, and after let's say queen captures on c7, you can ignore this, play queen to e8, you defend your passed pawn, and there is really nothing much white can hope for here. If you go for this pawn, we can go for queen to g6 check, and now it's really an ugly position here. King h1, we're gonna play h6 to avoid any future mistakes like a back rank mate, and this is just always going to be a problem. Of course, if you capture this, then queen to b1 check can be played, and then for example if king to g2, now we can play rook f6, go after rook to g6 and create an attack, and we don't care about any back rank issues because we played h6. So this is not a position where you want to look for chances. After rook to f8, they agreed to a draw, and this is just incredible. So there were many great moments in this game, many mistakes, and well, many winning chances. But we all know what was Carlsen's biggest mistake in not winning this game. It was, of course, in this position when he could have played b4, he played c3. He angered the chess gods, and of course, it doesn't matter if he was plus 10, plus 100, plus 1000 in the end. There was just no winning this position. You always have to play the Evans Gambit. That's just the way chess works. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. A nice start to day 3. We'll see who will qualify in the end for the main event. I would like to thank Mr. Hoodie Guy, Boris Radenchik, Devan Shah and Aman Patel, Barry McMurdoch and Prathamesh Mahajan for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this very nice event, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.